Good morning, and we are delighted to welcome you to our second UK Boarding School exhibition online. And we'd like to welcome our school delegates and the families that are joining us this morning. As an introduction to Anderson education, we have been working with families living in the Middle East for the past 18 years, offering free impartial advice and guidance on helping them to select the best UK boarding school for their children. We organised the UK Boarding School exhibition in Dubai. We've been doing that since 2006, and it's an opportunity for families living in the Gulf region to meet heads and representatives of up to 24 schools and find out more about the many opportunities a UK boarding education has to offer. It's in February and November each year. We visit Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia as part of our Middle East tours in January and November each year. This morning we're offering a focus on a sixth form education in a UK boarding school and the different options that are available. So we've got contributors talking about IB, A-levels, BTEC and a US curriculum school in London. Please put any questions that you've got into the chat. There'll be a couple of questions after each speaker finishes, and then after the three schools have finished, there'll be more time for your questions. Then we will welcome Kate Raisin, who is going to be giving some hints and tips, guidance about university home status eligibility for UK and EU citizens. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Sally Cooper-New, Director of Marketing Admissions at Malvern College. Malvern is a co-ed traditional boarding school located in the stunning Malvern Hills, and as they offer the option of IB and A-levels to students joining or in the school, it's a great opportunity for us to find out more about the differences and how they may be suitable for your children. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. I'm delighted to have been invited by Anderson to join you today and to give you a short overview of the options in sixth form at Malvern College, where we offer both the A-levels and International Baccalaureate diploma programme. So our focus is really about instilling and nurturing emotional and cultural intelligence that supports our drive for academic excellence. And we do this in 4 ways: via our core academic curriculum, via our super curriculum, and via our co-curriculum, and also with a very strong focus on pupil health and well-being through our house structure. Our academic focus is really around developing a love of learning, a love of developing curiosity. And we do this through 4 key areas: through intellectual stretch, by the breadth of our academic programme, through encouraging independent study from an early age, but specifically in the sixth form, and about working together. And these skills, these life skills, will be very important for our pupils as they go on to their lives after Malvern College, whether that's university or to gap years or into the world of work. Our A-level, sixth form and IB, we offer a very broad breadth of academic choice, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So Malvern College has been known for its innovation and ambition throughout its history. We were founded in 1865, and this has been brought to light most recently, particularly in our sixth form, with the introduction of our bridging programmes, which have supported both our year 11s, those post-GCSE who haven't been able to take their exams, in transitioning to sixth form, and more importantly for this topic, for our year 13s, those who would have completed their A-levels and International Baccalaureate exams, to undertake bridging courses to universities that we have put in place via our virtual learning platform. So the sixth form at Malvern College, as I've said, we are quite unique in that we have a 50-50 split of our sixth form who undertake A-level and IB. We've been teaching the IB for 25 years, and from our results, we are one of the top 5 schools in the UK for our academic output at International Baccalaureate Diploma programme. Because of the breadth of our 26 subjects across A-level and IB, and we teach A-level subjects completely separately from IB subjects, class sizes tend to be relatively small, enabling a very individual focus on learning and support. So I'm here today to talk about the differences between A-level or IB and how you or your child should go about working out which is the best option. Both courses are highly valued and specifically recognised by universities, and both are very challenging in their own right. A-levels allows for more specialisation. You have a focused choice of subjects. There's more flexibility within those subjects, but it gives a depth of understanding in a smaller number of subjects. Whereas the IB has a breadth and range of subjects, undertaking 6 core subjects, as well as the theory of knowledge and what is called CAS, or creativity, activity and service. In our A-level programme, our pupils would mainly undertake 3 subjects plus an enrichment subject, and some of our pupils do take 4 subjects right through the 2 years. Some who take 4 subjects may drop one of those after year 12 and only continue 3 into the full A-level programme. I won't list all of the subjects that you can see on your screen, but those would be the options for A-level, and most combinations are available to study together. So academic enrichment provides support to our pupils in their learning beyond the rigours of the academic programme, and the most popular options are listed there. The extended project qualification and global perspectives particularly add UCAS points to our pupils' qualifications. Some of the courses that we offer for academic enrichment are more for in broadening students' view of the world, their breadth of learning and research, particularly in their sixth form studies. The International Baccalaureate is slightly different in that it requires 6 subjects, as well as the 3 core subjects of theory of knowledge, extended essay and the CAS, which all contribute to the final point score. It's a little bit more tricky to, if you've not used to seeing the International Baccalaureate programme, to piece it all together. Our head of sixth form is very experienced in discussing with parents and prospective pupils what the best route in International Baccalaureate is. It mainly requires the pupil to take 3, possibly 4 subjects at a higher level, which would be equivalent to A-levels, and also 3 or 2 subjects at a standard level, which would be equivalent to an AS level. Each of those subjects is graded on a point system from 1 to 7, and then the theory of knowledge, extended essay and CAS, or creativity, activity and service, contribute the final 3 points to the last score, and that is the full points of 45 points that is available at the final International Baccalaureate level. This hexagon that you can see on your screen is the breakdown of those subject choices. Again, it's a little bit hard to fully take in and understand in a short presentation. And again, our head of sixth form would take pupils and parents through this, but you can see most of the subjects in each of the blocks are available at both higher and standard level, with the exception of a couple of options in languages, which is really related to pupils who may join us from Europe, and where their first language or their equal fluent language is in Spanish or Italian. So as a sixth form, the reason we offer both A-levels and IB is to give our pupils the opportunity to experience a full transformational learning experience while they're with us. And what that means is that through either programme, we develop independent pupils who are capable of working by themselves, working with others in order to achieve their academic potential. We really encourage a love and passion for learning, both inside and outside of the classroom, and that is delivered through the supporting super curricular programme, which is our programme of academic societies and clubs and options outside of normal timetable, which we encourage all pupils to take part in. Whatever their academic ability, there is something for everybody to attend, which expands their knowledge, which supports their programme of learning at either A-level or IB. and enables us to stretch our most able pupils, those that we would class as potentially our Oxbridge students, and support our less able pupils throughout their journey at the college and still have a love for learning in the sixth form when they are with us. So in our sixth form, in our year 13, 81% of our pupils would go to their first choice university. A large percentage, 3/4 of our pupils will have offers from some of the most elite universities, including Oxbridge, Russell Group and Ivy League. A small percentage of our pupils do go on to university overseas, and some of our pupils will defer entry to university and take a gap year. The majority of our pupils would go to university after completing their A-level programme with us. The IB does give access to a broader range of universities overseas. It is recognised by UK universities, but most of our students join us to do the IB who have the ambition to attend university overseas, particularly in America or Canada. So as I said, our university destinations, we do prepare for Oxbridge. We have specific Oxbridge classes. Top choices at the moment, aside from Oxbridge, would be Edinburgh, Exeter and UCL. Others that we send our pupils to are listed below. And then, as I said, we are a SATs testing centre. We offer SATs classroom preparation for application to universities in America. We're on the tour for universities in America. And some of our overseas, or some of our pupils who have gone to overseas universities are listed there on your screen. So that's a very short introduction in the few minutes that I have to what we offer and the choice between A-level and IB. And I'm happy just to hand back to Sarah for any questions that might have come in.
Thank you very much, Sally. That was great to be able to hear firsthand so much information about both of the qualifications available for a sixth form study, and also I think to have it explained to us what a really good sixth form has to offer students and the very many benefits that they will get from that. We haven't had a question in from our families, but there is a couple that I would like to ask. Is the entry criteria the same for both A-level and IB, or how does it change?
Our entry criteria to study in the sixth form at Malvern is the same. What we do is, prior to anybody coming into our sixth form taking our entrance test, which all pupils have to do, we would spend quite a lot of time working with the pupils and their families on identifying which is the best route. And based on their academic reports or their academic predicted grades, that would help us support the pupil to make the choice of whether it's IB or A-levels before they get to entrance tests. But the entrance tests themselves are exactly the same.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And actually, one of the families joining us has asked that question just now as well. So now we would like to introduce our, oh sorry, we've got one more question here. Any nationalities accepted? Yes,
we are particularly in our sixth form, we would be about 35% of international pupils in our sixth form. That is higher than in our lower school, and that is because we offer both A-level and IB. We tend to have a lot of applicants from particularly European countries who want to study the IB because they want to access universities outside of the UK. But in the school itself, in the whole of Malvern, we represent about 72 different nationalities.
Thank you, Sally. I'd now like to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Josh Bradbury, Head of Sixth Form at Milton Abbey School. Milton Abbey has been voted BTEC School of the Year and has an extensive range of interesting and innovative BTEC subjects available for students to choose from. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Sarah, and good afternoon to everybody. Hopefully in the next 10 minutes, we'll be able to give you a little bit of an overview of what we do, which we think is kind of interesting and exciting, but it's certainly different, I think, from a lot of other places. I'm going to start, if I may, with a very short video, which hopefully will give you an oversight of what we are and what we do.
place is transformational. I think for our young people to have the opportunity to come and study in a place this beautiful, I often say to visiting prospective parents that actually the beauty of the place is the least interesting thing about it. What's really beautiful here is the relationships between the students themselves and between the students and their teachers. It's a really committed group of staff. We have the absolute belief that there is no ceiling on achievement. We love the fact that here all sorts of achievement are recognised and all sorts of different intelligences and aptitudes are on display.
Key for us is to talk about the right types of subjects for the right types of student and finding styles of study and subjects that suit that student's interests and that student's skill set. So it's all about matching subjects to individuals.
We offer a really diverse range of subjects, so what happens is that every pupil has their opportunity to find their niche and every pupil can excel.
We're absolutely delighted to have won BTEC School of the Year. They really open up opportunities for our students, and we have a full programme of A-levels as well. So between the A-levels and the BTECs, there's just something for everybody and an opportunity for everyone to shine.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little overview as to what we offer, and I think there's a couple of things to draw out of that I'm interested in just developing a little bit, and that is specifically the idea of choice and the idea of different options for different types of student and different types of intelligence, and that's really what we're all about. So specifically today, I'm here to talk a little bit about BTEC, which stands for the Business and Technology Education Council qualification, which is a bit of a mouthful. BTEC is simply the most well-known and the widest delivered set of vocational qualifications in the UK at the moment. The courses themselves are entirely unit-based. So each course is made up of a number of units, which has a range of assignments in it. And those units develop practical and theoretical knowledge through applied outcomes. So perhaps in some ways, unlike A-levels or some areas of the IB, the key with the BTEC is that it's all about applying what you've learned in the classroom to practical and real world outcomes. And what's really important for that, in that for our students, is the ability to study things that are really closely related to to the world of work and to industry related skills. The other thing to be aware of, which I'll come to a little bit later as well, is the fact that they are entirely comparable with the equivalent GCSE, or in this case, A-level courses. And for our students, the real bonus is the fact that they operate as an ongoing assessment process. Rather than having to wait until those terminal exams at the end of 2 years, the students are continually being assessed. They're continually aware of how they're doing. They're continually aware of what needs to be done next to improve their grades and their final outcomes. So that sense of that final compression, that final stress is reduced for them because they have control. Typical course structure, as I've mentioned, is a unit-based process. Our standard structure is what we call the BTEC diploma, which is a double-weighted course, so it's worth 2 A-levels, if you like, overall. And that's normally around 9 or 10 units studied over 2 years, with each unit comprising a number of assignments. The units pick up a whole variety of information, whether that's the theoretical background knowledge that you need to understand whatever you're working on, whether that's the planning and development skills, understanding timescales and delivering to deadlines, or whether that's final delivery of product and then evaluation and market awareness for that product. Recently, there's been a big change in the BTEC landscape, and what we've seen is the movement to a new style of qualification, which has increased the amount of external assessment that's available. So now we find that most BTECs are around 30 or 40% externally assessed, and that gives them a greater degree of rigor than was perhaps once there, and means that the students really have to step up and make sure that their outcomes are the very highest quality. What's really useful here, though, is that because they're a modular system, students do have the ability to resit those external modules if they need to. For us, though, it's not just about BTECs, and we're certainly not just a BTEC school. And what separates out what we do is that we offer what's called a mixed currency offer. And that means that our students are free to choose A-levels and various types of BTEC and combine them in any way that works well for them. I think the general pattern with a lot of this is that students either study the A-levels or they study the BTECs. Whereas we believe actually that both types of study are clearly worthwhile, and that the students can gain a great deal from combining those two different types of study. So they get that depth and that sense of traditional sort of academic rigor from their A-levels, and they can combine that with those practical outcomes and that ongoing assessment style and that time management that they learn from studying BTEC courses. And they can combine those in a whole variety of different ways, which you can see on here, and to create the perfect outcome for them. What this looks like for us then is a pretty wide range of subjects. Certainly the widest range of BTEC subjects that are available, so far as I'm aware, in the independent sector, alongside a pretty full range of traditional A-level subjects. And the key here is that hopefully every student can find a combination of subjects and a combination of study styles that's going to work for them. As you can see from the list of BTECs, over on the left-hand side there, they do take you in a slightly different direction. They open up new areas of study that perhaps aren't traditionally available in more normal or more traditional areas. So subject areas like film and TV, VFX, things like the fashion design and production courses allow students to develop industry-specific skills using industry-grade technologies, which are going to allow them either to go on to university or to go direct into the industry, knowing that they've got skills that employers are looking for. One of the key areas here I think that people need to be aware of is the equivalence in terms of those outcomes. And certainly, obviously, most of our students will be looking towards university placements. And we would reckon on around 80% of our any given year group heading off to university. And certainly in the last cycle, 85 to 90% of our students got their first choice places, and we placed every single student that wanted to go to university. So the outcomes definitely work. What's important is that there is a complete equivalence between A-level gradings and BTEC gradings. So if you get an A grade at A-level, that has the same UCAS tariff as a distinction grade at BTEC. And as you can see there, if you do a triple award BTEC and you get D star DD, that's an equivalent to getting A star AA at A-level. It gives you 152 UCAS points. So you can accrue significant UCAS points, which will allow for access to a whole range of universities. And as you can see at the bottom there, the BTEC qualification is increasingly popular. We're looking at around a quarter of all students going into universities in the UK are holding at least one BTEC qualification. And alongside the A-level and the IB, it is one of those top 3 qualifications being offered in the UK at the moment. And what does all that mean? Well, it means that we get students heading out into a wide range of different kinds of outcome. Some of these outcomes are relatively traditional. Students going on to study sort of business, environmental studies, human resource management, sports science, all accessible through those BTEC pathways. But we're also seeing students going on to study more practical or more creative subject areas, things like filmmaking, fashion communication, interior design, music and technology. These are all different areas which actually we find our BTEC students tend to have better access to because their portfolios are much, much bigger. And rather than having learned about the idea of designing something, generally they've gone out and actually done it, and they can use the software and they can produce a product. So I thought just to quickly close up, in some senses, we'd let the work speak for itself. And I hope you'll excuse me, this is quite a quick edit, but I've got a little clip here, which is just a combination of lots of different work, all of which was created by our level 3 BTEC students. hopefully it gives you a little bit of a taste of what BTEC can offer. It's a little bit different, it's a little bit wider in range, and if you have any questions, I'm sure that I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Certainly interesting to hear about the range of subjects. I see it's 17 A-level subjects and 12 BTEC subjects. And I think for students that have a real passion for a non-traditional subject, whether it's sport, media, fashion, equine studies, for them to be able to study in that sort of depth, at that sort of level, must be truly inspiring. And the industry-specific skills that they leave with are really going to help them on to the next step. So thank you for that. And now I'd like to move to our third speaker and introduce to you Sarah Travis, Senior Associate Director at TASIS. TASIS is the American school in England offering the American curriculum, close to London and access to London airports. So hand over to you now, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yes, as Sarah said, I'm going to be giving a brief overview of the US curriculum and also the university application to US universities. So the curriculum that's taught at TASIS is very similar to that taught at most US schools. It's a very broad-based American curriculum that's taught in the lower and middle schools. And then in the upper school, the American high school diploma is taught. And that begins in grades 9 and 10. Then in grades 11 and 12, students have two choices. So they can either continue studying the American high school diploma alongside advanced placement courses, also known as AP courses, or they can choose to study the IB diploma program. Both programs and all learning at TASIS very much have a global focus. And it's probably a good point to make here that it really doesn't matter what curriculum students have studied before. They can join TASIS at any time throughout the year because we have a rolling admissions process. And like I say, we can integrate any student from any curriculum into our teaching as well. So today I'm not going to focus on the IB diploma program, but I'm actually going to talk about the AP courses. So as I say, in grade 11 and 12, students can choose to do AP courses alongside the American high school diploma. The AP courses, they're 1 year, they're very fast paced and they're university level courses. So they require really good reading skills and a commitment to independent learning. Students typically take 3 AP courses per year. So they'll take 3 in grade 11, 3 in grade 12, so 6 in total. And most AP courses are 100% exam. The exams are held in May each year. They're compulsory, so students know once they take an AP course that their exam will be in May, and that's something that they have to do, and it's normally within the first 2 weeks of May. The exams are 2 to 3 hours long. They're a combination of multiple choice and free response. And they're scored on a scale of 1 to 5, with 3 actually being the passing grade. You should note that most AP courses will have a prerequisite. Now, if you don't know much about AP courses, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that they're considered the standard for academic excellence in the US. They help students to build confidence and to learn essential time management and study skills, which will be needed for university and future career success as well. They're recognised by US universities and also universities throughout the world. And they're really sort of valued for their rigour and the breadth and depth of experience and study skills that they give students. So they really do give students who are looking to study at sort of various universities a competitive advantage in the admissions process. Now, most universities in the US and Canada will award credit for students that have studied an AP course and scored a 3 or above. And that includes Ivy League universities as well. So Harvard, for example, or Stanford will both give award credit for scoring a 3 or more in an AP course. In terms of a UK university, you need at least 3, but preferably 4 AP courses to gain admission. And TASIS has over 20 AP courses available now for students, and this is one of the highest number offered in the UK. Now, I thought I'd show you some of the results that TASIS students scored last year. We don't obviously have the results for this year, but as you can see, I won't point out sort of every facts on this slide, but as you can see, 31% of our students scored a grade 5, so the very top score in the exams. Okay, I'm going to move on now to the US university application process. Now, this is quite a lengthy process, and I'm happy to talk to anyone in more detail about this at a later time, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview now. Okay, so most US universities, so over 600 universities in the US, will accept Common App applications. The Common App is a portal which allows students to apply to up to 20 universities at one time using just one application. So it requires students to write an essay based on what they call prompts. In 2019, there were 7 prompts, and these all had a 650 word limit. And students can actually choose which of those 7 prompts that they wanted to write on. Each university also has its own set of essay prompts or additional questions that really help to make the Common App more specific to them. And these are what they call supplements. Students also have to take SAT or ACTs. The SAT is probably the most commonly available option to non-US students, and TASIS offers both the SAT and the ACT on campus. We're a SAT test centre, and we offer those on campus around 3 or 4 times each academic year. The SAT is a 3-hour, 50-minute exam, and that includes an optional essay of 50 minutes. And the essay is sometimes called the writing component, so you will sometimes see it referred to as that. And it consists of 5 sections. So there's a reading, a writing, a math with calculator, a math without calculator, and then, as I said, the optional essay. US universities will also ask you normally to sit SAT subject tests, and these are 1 hour in length, and they consist of 20 multiple choice questions. And they'll also ask for your academic transcripts and predicted grades. Alongside that, you will be asked to submit your English language proficiency, normally in the form of a test such as IELTS or TOEFL or the Oxford Online Placement tests. And you will normally have to submit 2, sometimes 3, depending on the university, teacher recommendations. Now, there's not actually a fee for the Common App, but there is a fee that certain universities will charge for submitting the Common App plus the supplement. And that varies as to how much that costs. Obviously, the Ivy League universities will charge slightly more. This slide here, I think, is very useful for you to see. It shows the university destinations of some of the TASIS students. So as you can see, I've listed the Ivy League universities here. A number of our students will attend Ivy League universities, but because they can study sort of AP or IB, many of them will choose to study at UK universities as well. And if they do that, they tend to go to the Russell Group universities. So that's a very brief overview. I could go into a lot more detail on those topics. But if you would like further information on anything I've spoken about today, or you'd like some advice on how to prepare for the SAT test, or what to include in your essay when you're applying to university, or if you just want to know how TASIS can help your son or daughter to gain entry into a top university, then as I say, let's talk more. So I've given my contact details below, and I'd be very happy for you to get in touch at any time.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Very interesting to hear about the American school in London. Perhaps you can just explain to us about, you must have a very good international mix of students.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're very lucky at TASIS. We have 58 different nationalities of students enrolled with us currently. And we actually have a policy whereby we don't have any more than 12% from one nationality. So that makes sure that our student body is always very diverse.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question for Sally. With the IB and A levels, is there any particular type of student that each qualification would suit?
Thank you. I think it's more down to how the student A wants to study, and B, their plans for the future. So a number of our students who study the A level, for example, are very specific about which subjects they enjoy. And we're a full boarding school, so there are lots and lots of additional activities that pupils can take part in. So they would be the students who maybe have a developing career in sport, very high level sport or music or drama, which is supporting their academic A-level studies. So it gives them more time in their week and their extended day to take a more fuller time and participation in some of those other areas that they may be specialising in. And IB, by the nature of taking the 6 subjects, has more timetable, has more requirement for studying outside of that, particularly in researching. So it really comes down to how the pupil likes to study, what their outside interests or activities are, and what they're looking to do beyond coming to sixth form.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Just one other, which I'll direct to Josh. For a new sixth form student joining from another school or overseas, how do you offer them guidance on selecting their subjects?
So like kind of everything we do, it's all about conversations. We don't have rigid entry lines into any aspect of our curriculum. And so it'll be a conversation with myself, it'll be a conversation with the head. The head likes to particularly do a separate interviews with the student and then with the parents to make sure that we're getting those different voices involved. And it's about it's all about the conversations with the students, and we talk through their interests, their skill sets. And in that sense, it's about finding what's going to work for them. So it's a process of just ongoing conversation and development. And we're always relatively flexible when students arrive as well. We're very aware that a lot of what we offer isn't stuff that they will have necessarily encountered before. And they won't necessarily know what it means to do that type of subject in a classroom in that type of way. So generally, the first few weeks of the Michaelmas term will tend to be pretty flexible. Students can move around if they need to and make those changes and those adaptations that they might want.
Thank you very much, Josh. And just one for Sarah, because you are offering advice on university applications, UK and US, well, the other schools are as well. When does the process start? Is it similar for students applying to UK universities and US universities?
Yes, I mean, it is. We actually have a 4-year university and college guidance course at TASIS. So that actually starts in grade 9. So the actual preparation starts from grade 9. So when students are about 14. But then the actual application process, yes, it will start sort of around about October each year, because some of the universities, in particular in the US, will have sort of an early decision. So we like to start students sort of submitting their applications as soon as possible, really. But as I say, the actual preparation starts from grade 9.
Thank you. We've had another question, which is, so in the USA, they take SAT. What are the tests to study in a university in the UK? Well, I think that is all about what we're discussing this morning. So whether a student studies the IB diploma, A-levels, BTECs, or a mixture of BTECs and A-levels, those are all qualifications that are going to secure them in places at a university.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Kate Raisin. She's from UK Study Group, independent expert on UK university fee status. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much, Sarah. So yes, I'm Kate, I'm from UK Study Options. We offer independent university and careers advice to students, parents and schools around the world. We are the experts on UK university fee status, so that's why I'm going to talk to you about that today. We are the only people who independently advise on this on a personal basis, so that's why I'm qualified to talk to you about it. Fee status is quite a complicated area, and normally I do a webinar of about 40 minutes on this, but I've distilled it right down into the most important bits for you. So I'm going to cover how might fee status affect you, and then cover some tips on how you can retain home status eligibility. So I'll just see that my screen's working. There we go. Okay, so we'll jump straight in then. So this is fee status in a nutshell, how it might affect you. So universities charge different fees for home students and overseas students. Overseas students pay between £15,000 and £250,000 more for their degree than home students do, and that is depending on what university they go to and what course they want to study. So the fees vary quite a lot for overseas students, whereas for home students they are fixed at the rate of £9,250 for any university and any course. Overseas students also don't have any access to student loans, and some courses are capped for overseas students. So the fee status that a student is assigned not only impacts how much fee they might pay, but it also might impact how competitive it is for a student to get onto a certain course. So the stakes are quite high then to make sure that if you have home fee eligibility, that you make sure you retain that eligibility over the years and make sure you've got a strong case when you apply to university. So expats often get classed as overseas students because the universities think that they have lost that eligibility. But this can be avoided in most cases. We've been doing fee status assessments for around 10 years now. We've helped well over 1,000 families over the years to try and maintain their home status eligibility. And in the vast majority of cases, if families are given the right information, they can retain that eligibility. But if they don't have that information, it's also quite easy to lose that eligibility without realising. Competitive universities and courses tend to be stricter on fee status than others. So typically the Russell Group universities, which are the top in the UK, and courses such as medicine, law, engineering, they are very oversubscribed, and universities tend to scrutinise those applications more than others. And if there is any, if it's unclear what their fee status might be, they tend to kind of sway towards overseas status. So that's how fee status might affect you and the problem you might face when your son or daughter goes to apply to university. So some tips then, what can you do? It is quite easy to lose your home status eligibility. Universities are getting stricter about this. It is quite complicated at the moment with things like Brexit, the pandemic. These things are all having an impact on the funding that universities are receiving, and therefore the fees that universities are charging their students. So what can you do to try and avoid getting an overseas offer? Well, the first thing you should know is that nationality and place of birth alone are not decisive factors. So lots of families that come to us, they've got British passports, they think that that automatically gives them home fees, but that's just one of the criteria that universities are looking for to give home status. So they are important parts of the assessment, but on their own, they don't qualify home status. We advise people to think about this well ahead of university applications. So we go into schools every year and present on this, and we generally present to parents of students from year 10 upwards, because you really need that time to make plans so that you can strengthen your case in those really important years up to the start of university. So plan well ahead. It is probably our #1 tip for this. You need to maintain something called ordinary residence for at least 3 years before the start of uni. So what ordinary residence means is a regular, habitual mode of living in the UK. So that's the official term for that phrase, ordinary residence. And that basically means that you need to use the UK as your home and have a life there. Not necessarily live there permanently, but you need to maintain some kind of life, some kind of residence back in the UK in order to qualify for ordinary residence. So part of that is the following: having a UK home address. It doesn't need to be owned by you. It helps, but it doesn't need to be officially your property. The key here is having consistency, having somewhere that you call home and somewhere that you use as home, and making regular family trips back to the UK, back to that home address over the years that you are not living in the UK. You need to show that you have an intention to return to the UK at some point. So it's good to have an idea of when you're planning to move back. You need to back that up with some kind of planning. Are you getting the family home back in the UK ready? Is your work planning to repatriate you? Is there some kind of something on paper that you can show that you at some point have an intention to go back to your home country? And a similar point is that you need to show your absence from your home country is of a temporary nature. So this is more about your circumstances under which you are in your residence. Typically, universities look at the parent's employment for evidence that your move to, let's say, Dubai is purely temporary, and at some point that will come to an end. You need to gather as much evidence as possible for all of these things, all of the above. So typical evidence includes flight tickets every time you go back to visit your home country, documents pertaining to your property, documents for your employment, if you've been expatriated, any documents around that. So these kind of things are what the universities will ask you to provide if you are borderline, if there's any, if it's unclear what your fee status is. So be prepared to, over the years, save as much evidence as possible. Put it in a file on your desktop, on the laptop, or chuck it in a physical file at home. Anything you come across that you think that might be good to save, chuck it in that file. And then if there is any question over the fee status, you can dig that out and you've got lots of evidence to provide. If you do apply to university and you get faced with overseas offers, it's not the end of the world. You are within your rights to appeal that decision. If you think that the university may have overlooked some details of your circumstances, or if you've got some more evidence that you can provide that might change their decision, so you can appeal, but it is harder at the application stage to change the university's decision. You also are at a disadvantage because you can't change the years prior to that. So That's why we say plan ahead if you can, so that you don't get to the stage where you have to launch an appeal with the university. It's also very stressful for the student at that point. So it's far better to think about this well ahead of university applications and make sure that you go into it with your best chance of getting home status. So these are obviously generic tips that everybody can use. There are specific tips that we give people in their specific circumstances. We offer a fee status assessment for a fee. So if you are reading this and you think, I think we might have a complicated case and I'd like to get some personal advice on this, you can get in touch with us and we can help you with our fee status service. But a little bit of a little tip on where you can get more information. So we have a blog on our website, loads of information about fee status on there, so you can get really clued up by reading those articles. There's also a website called UKESA. The spelling is on the screen now. They publish all the rules and regulations, the government legislation around this. It's quite dense, but if you really want to know your stuff, you can sift through that and get quite knowledgeable about it. We're also on Facebook. We post a lot of articles, news, anything that's relevant to fee status, we will post it up there. So if you like us or follow us, it'll pop up on your feed and we kind of do the hard work for you there. Or you can get in touch with us. So our contact details are on the screen now and our website is on the screen as well. But I think we've got a few questions coming up and some time for that. So I will take those now.
Thank you very much, Kate. A lot of valuable information there and advice. And again, we can put you in contact with Kate if you have more specific problems or questions. Just a couple of questions that have come in then. Is boarding school considered an ordinary residence, or any of the parents need to be resident too?
That's a very good question. The universities won't take the school address as a home address. So no. And the other thing to think about is there's a little kind of a rule in the rules and regulations called the main purpose rule. If a student is in the UK purely for education alone, and if they weren't at school, they would be in another country, then that triggers something called the main purpose rule. And it means that you cannot have, the student cannot have ordinary residence in the UK. So outside of schooling, the family must be able to show that they have a residence in the UK and would be there if it were not for a temporary absence to another country. I hope that explains that question.
Thank you, Kate. And a further question, is the home status, overseas status awarded depending on what you fill out on a UCAS form?
Not necessarily. So in an ideal situation, a student will apply using the very limited information, personal information on the UCAS form and get home fees. But if the student's been schooled outside the UK or outside the EU, or their address is outside of the UK or EU, then that might flag up the university's fee status assessment. So they will either give the student an overseas offer if they're pretty confident that the student is overseas. But the more common scenario is that they will send a form to the student and say, we need a bit of information about your background to make our decision about what status you are. And it's that form that's really important, and it's the information on that form. It's called a fee status questionnaire. It's quite important to fill that out correctly to make sure that you get home fees if you have eligibility. So ideally you would get the home status without having to fill out the form, but most of our families do kind of flag up an assessment of their fees and they have to submit further information to the university.
Thank you very much, Kate. If I could ask for Josh, Sally and Sarah to join us back again. I've just got a couple of questions that if very briefly you could all give some input on. Somebody has asked about learning support. So what sort of support do you offer for students? How are they assessed on entry? And this is, I mean, maybe not necessarily just for the sixth form, just for your school in general, for all year groups. So if Sally, you could just give us a little bit of an update on learning support at Malvern College.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a full learning support department with its own head of department. That is assessed if pupils, if pupils join the lower school, through school reports from their current school, any statements that there might be, and conversations with our head of, we call it learning enhancement, and our head of safeguarding as well. So it's done on a very individual basis, and it's done as part of this. The same would be in sixth form, those ongoing discussions, meetings with parents and the family prior to the pupil joining the school.
Thank you, Sally. And Josh, if you can give us an overview for Milton Abbey.
Very similar, I think, in some senses. It's an individual process through our learning development department, so just slightly different name. We're moving towards a model in which we're trying to get every student accessing that through this idea that all students, learning is inherently difficult regardless of your profile, and that we want to push every student to be able to achieve that. But we have, a significant portion of our students will access that support, and so we use EPRs and all the usual processes to support that, and we've got a very active department. And again, it would be through conversation with parents, with students, and developing what's necessary for each student individually.
Thank you, Josh. Sarah, is there anything different that you'd like to add that is offered at TASIS?
As with the other schools, we have a learning support centre. Any sort of learning needs are picked up very early on in the admissions process, and then we work very closely with the student and the family to identify what support is needed, and then we put the various sort of measures in place to make sure that that student has all the support, and that's assessed on an ongoing basis as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Just one other question I'd again like each of the three schools to contribute to. I think this is really interesting because I think this is an area that UK boarding schools do so well. So somebody has asked about what careers advice and guidance do you offer for students? So Sally, if you can give us an overview from Malvern.
So again, a bit like the learning enhancement, we have a full careers department. Those conversations start usually in our GCSE year as we're working with our pupils to identify what their next step is, whether that's into our sixth form or into a different sixth form. Those careers conversations actually start very early on in the school, alongside our life skills program, and it's an open discussion. Because of our nature of being a full boarding school, there are a lot of other people around the pupils all the time that can provide support in those discussions, and that would be their individual tutor, it might be their housemaster or housemistress, or any member of our house teams. Something as simple as, by the nature that we have complete in-house dining, means that some of those conversations are actually quite informal. People might be sat by a different teacher than they would normally see over lunch, and could have that conversation then. So both a formal and informal process at Malvern.
Thank you, Sally. I think Sally mentioned a point there, which again is a key question of families or expat families from overseas, is the full boarding environment, and there's so many benefits that has to offer boarding students. Boarding is a way of life, it's not just about the education. Josh, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
I think in some senses very similar. The full boarding environment, again, for us, really critical. And we're really, we keep most of our students on site all the way through, so we don't have that sense where, all the UK students disappear at the weekend, perhaps, and the international students are there over the weekends. We're pretty aggressive on making sure that everybody is staying on site all the way through to offer those wider programs. And that helps to open up those conversations. We're quite lucky, we're able to use a lot of incoming speakers and things. So we have things like an entrepreneur in residence program where we'll bring in business people to come and speak to students, to workshop with them. We do similar things with our music programs and our drama programs. So alongside in-house careers advice, we also bring in connections from business and from the wider environment to speak to people and talk to students and set up connections. We use our alumni network quite a lot with that as well, and so we'll tap into that and get sort of advice and guidance about particular career areas where we've got alumni who work in those particular fields, and that connection works really well because the students can see, well, actually they were in the same place as me, they came from this environment, how have they gone about achieving what they've achieved. So yeah, I think that connection, that combination, formal and informal, and then some of that external input as well.
Thank you, Josh. That all sounds excellent and huge benefit to the students. Sarah, at TASIS, is there anything that you'd like to add about careers advice and guidance offered to your students?
Yes, I mean, we're very lucky at TASIS in that we have a dedicated university and college guidance team who actually, like I say, they're dedicated to providing advice, not only on sort of universities, but on careers as well. And they're based on campus. They run a 4-year programme from grade 9 to grade 12, as I mentioned in my presentation. Which really from grade 9 gets students to start to think about sort of the subjects that they're interested in, that they might then be able to go on and build a career in. And then that it gets sort of more advanced as they progress through the grades. We also have a regular career speaker series where we invite speakers from various different industries onto campus to talk to our students. And some of those industries actually offer our students work placements as well. So those are just a few of the things that we have available to the students.
Thank you, Sarah. Another question for Kate. If a family have a property but it is rented out and parents are declared non-residents, can that address be used?
I'd need a bit more information to answer that question, actually, because it's quite specific to your circumstances. It would depend on quite a lot of factors. So I think if you should get in touch for that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if we have no further questions, I'd just like to hand you over to my colleague, Nikki.
Hello. We'd like to thank all of the 3 schools who've taken part this morning, and also to Kate for imparting her knowledge, which has told us a lot of things we didn't know, I think, and all the families who have shared their questions. Now, the UK Boarding School Live, as I think we'd like to call it now, will be in Dubai on the 6th and 7th of November at the Grosvenor House in the Marina, and we'll be looking forward to welcoming more than 20 schools to the exhibition. I mean, Anderson Education will continue to support families, offering free help and advice and finding the right school for their child. And also now, in the light of what we've heard today, considering the different sixth form options that could suit your child. We'll be in touch with additional information from the participating schools. And we'd like to thank you all very much for joining us, and take care.
I have one more question, actually, again for the 3 schools. So for families that move a lot, some people have advised that it's not recommended that a student does sixth form in different schools, i.e. year 12 in one and year 13 in another. Does it really have an impact? I think from Anderson Education's point of view, because we do offer families help and advice, it is quite a difficult process. You've got to match awarding bodies and subjects. Some schools we know can be flexible and will consider it. Other schools will definitely not consider it. It's probably not in the long run in the best interest of the child to enable them to achieve their potential academically. But Sally, have you got any thoughts on that at all?
Yes, it would be highly unlikely that we would take a pupil into our year 13, and mainly from the aspect that you've just mentioned, that it's not in the best interest of the pupil to come in year 13, particularly like the other schools represented here today. We're a full boarding school, and so a lot of the community and the the support networks that we put in place for all our pupils, whatever their age they are. And I know a lot of people think that they're very, very grown up when they're in the sixth form and they don't need that support network, but actually they probably need it just as much. That's very difficult for a pupil to come in their final year and settle into that. And as you said, subject choices and timetables matching up what they've previously studied and where they've got to in those studies would be very challenging. And it wouldn't be something that, unless it was very, very exceptional circumstances, I can't see how that would work at Malvern for us to be right for the family or the pupil involved.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Josh, do you have anything to add there? Anything different?
No, I think I'd largely echo what Sally was saying. We will get students that will come in, switch over to us, and then effectively restart lower sixth because they've perhaps found that where they've been previously hasn't worked, and they want to move on to something like the BTEC programs. So we absolutely get students coming in at that juncture. But I think, as Sally has said, sixth form is so much about relationships, both pastoral and academic, and coming in halfway through. We have had it can be done and it can be successful, but I think I'd want to look at it very closely on a case-by-case basis, and we're open to the conversation, obviously. But
Thank you, Josh. Sarah, is there any different thoughts at TASIS on that?
Well, I mean, it certainly is possible to come in. Our final year would be grade 12, which is the equivalent to year 13 in the British system. Ideally, they would come in at grade 11, so they could do both sort of the 2 years of AP or 2 years of IB with us. But we certainly do take students into grade 12, and those students have gone on to achieve very good results. So it's possible, as long as obviously the AP courses or the IB subjects can be matched up. But ideally, they would come in at grade 11 and do the 2 years with us.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank our speakers. I think it's been a really invaluable session for everybody. And as Nikki says, we hope to be back in Dubai in person to meet you and follow up with these topics and to meet the schools in person for our UK boarding school exhibition on the 6th and 7th of November. Thank you.